Put your sunglasses on. Let the sun shine in. Welcome to A Chat in the Sun, the podcast where we explore how solar energy is transforming our world with smarter technology and long-term thinking. I'm Beth, and today we're talking about what happens after a solar plant is built, the behind-the-scenes work that keeps it running for decades. We're talking about operation and maintenance, the real day-to-day that keeps solar plants performing efficiently, even in the face of dust storms, heat waves, or unexpected failures. Because solar doesn't stop once a plant is connected to the grid. It needs to be monitored, cleaned, upgraded, and protected. And that's where smarter systems, predictive tools, and resilient components make all the difference. So what does O&M really involve? How do we reduce OPEX of a PV plant? And how can solar thrive even in the harshest conditions? Whether you're an asset manager, an engineer, developer, or asset owner, this episode will give you a new appreciation for the technology and the people who keep solar going strong. Let's jump in. Before we dive deeper, let's take a moment to understand why O&M matters so much. Keeping a plant running smoothly for 25 years or more takes more than good luck and sunny skies. From scorching deserts to snow-covered plains, today's utility-scale PV plants face extreme environments and high expectations. And that's where O&M, operations and maintenance, comes in. So today we're joined by experts from Trinasolar, voices from our internal solar field teams, and a SCADA specialist. Together, we'll explore how a strong O&M approach makes a difference, what role digitalization and real-time data play, and why working with the right manufacturer matters, from trackers to modules and inverters. But first, let's meet our guests. Joining us today, we have Vicente Polo, O&M product manager at Trina Tracker, whose background in electrical engineering and hands-on experience in building and managing solar projects have made him a driving force behind innovation in utility-scale solutions. Before joining Trina, he held key roles at ABB and Hitachi Energy, always with a strong focus on sustainability and performance. We have Natalia Cotrino, key account manager for modules at Trinasolar. With over a decade of experience in renewables across Europe, the Middle East and Latin America, Natalia brings both technical and commercial expertise to the table. She's passionate about bridging engineering and business to accelerate the global energy transition. We have Fernando Martín Salmeron, O&M Senior Manager for Europe at ISBU Trinasolar. Fernando has spent more than 10 years in the renewable energy sector, leading operations and asset management across companies like Sun Edison and Lightsource BP. His multidisciplinary background in engineering, business and law helps him keep plants running efficiently and clients confident. And we have Manuel Llenas Arbo, Regional Manager for Europe at Green Power Monitor, a DNV company. With deep expertise in asset management for wind, solar and storage systems, Manuel has played a key role in developing digital solutions that enhance monitoring and performance. A regular speaker at events like Wind Europe and Energy Year, he brings a forward-thinking perspective on how data and AI are shaping the future of renewable energy operations. Let's get started. It's time for First Light, and you know what that means? Quick-fire questions with a twist, and this time, a bit of a spin too. We've challenged one of our O&M experts to answer while playing a real game of ping-pong. That's right, every question is served with a rally, and every answer has to land before the next shot does. Vicente will be my ping-pong partner today. Let's get going. You ready?
So.
Here we go. What's your favourite way to unwind after a long day?
To play with my kids at home.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Nikola Tesla.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
What's one thing that you've always wanted to learn?
To fly a plane.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains, always.
If you weren't in renewable energy, what career would you have pursued?
Commercial pilot. I would have tried.
Wow. What's your hidden talent?
I like acting.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't complain and work hard.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Okay. It will be kind, patient, and hardworking.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I will still be in Spain. Opa.
Under the Spanish sun.
Yes. Okay.
O&M is where long-term value is won or lost, and no one knows that better than the experts who live it every day. In this segment, we'll dig into real challenges and practical solutions, from design mistakes that can haunt a project to the little adjustments that make a big difference. We'll hear about tough sites, surprise successes, and why O&M needs to be on the table from day one, not just after commissioning. Joining me today, we have Natalia, Vicente, Manuel, and Fernando.
Hello, Beth.
Hi, Bill. Thank you for coming in. So let's kick off with the first question. What role does an effective O&M strategy play in maximising the performance and lifespan of a PV project? Fernando?
Well, it is very important that we establish an annual preventive maintenance plan. Mm-hmm. This is set out when we start the operation of the asset, but we need to think about it before that. As you were pointing out, we don't start in the moment that we enter into the operation of the plant. We start way earlier than that. And indeed, nowadays, we can see that the O&M departments and the O&M components start to interact much more and much more frequently with the EPC, with the construction company. So there is an overlap on the time of the construction of the asset, where you see the construction team finishing, and at the same time, the operations team taking over the asset. Apart from that, we need to focus on the specific needs of every asset, depending on the region where we have the asset, depending on the teams that are on site, and in particular, focus also on the components. We have here other colleagues that will talk about that later, and they will focus on the peculiarities of every component of the PV plant. In addition to that, it is also important to establish a good SCADA system. Manuel here will help me on that. And it has become apparent over the last years that having a robust platform where you can see all the data flowing and where you can see how things are going since day one in the operation, demonstrate that later on give you a much better performance of the asset and a bigger outcome in terms of revenues.
You really need a solid implementation strategy.
Yes.
From the offset.
Yeah, but I think one of the things you said, I think that it's key when you're saying that every day more and more we see that the O&M is getting involved sooner on the project, because similar with the data, no? In the data, we are all the time analyzing the trends and the real-time data. For me, it's similar. People that is executing the project, it's looking on the short term. I need to deliver in 6 months. I need something fast, cook it, there it is. And then when it arrives to the O&M, I am looking on the 20 years. And having them in an early stage in the impact that it has in the SCADA. For example, on the weather sensors, they see a lot of value on using certain weather sensors or others where they are located, also for the operation, for the maintenance later, all the documentation, how it's structured, because during the execution, having a wire here, okay, now we have it, it works, but in 10 years, if we need to replace it, that could have a huge impact. Then all these towards the SCADA, like how we are helping, no? At the end, we've been collecting data for more than 15, 20 years. We have tons of data. And that data is something that we've been using at the beginning as something reactive, no? Like we were triggering an inverter is just stop and someone running. Like, okay, inverter is just stop, we go inside, we fix it. Let's see. And now it's running again, it's done. Now we are coming with things like anticipating, like, is this inverter going to fail? Or is this inverter underperforming? And analyzing all those trends and giving I will say, visibility to the O&M in order to help this maximize the production, but not only that, anticipating what is going to happen even before it happens.
So the data-driven O&M approach is really helping.
I will say that it's key. Well, on this, you see it more.
Yeah, I think Manuel has touched upon two very important points. One is the predictive maintenance. I mentioned before plant maintenance. Of course, you have the corrective one that he was describing when there is a fault. But what the sector is going through right now in the last 2-3 years mostly is the predictive maintenance. So in the O&M phase, we are there to maintain the asset, but what is given us much more value is that we anticipate these faults. We have the components there before something happens. So we reduce massively the downtime, and therefore we don't have a loss of revenue every day or every week in the assets. The other important point that Manuel was mentioning is the defects, the identification of defects in the very early stage phase of the asset. Given that we have many years of data in other assets, we can replicate those models, and we can replicate the faults and the fault analysis, which means that after having few assets in the same company and the same components, you can very easily see what is going to happen, and therefore that gives you a much more robust way to manage the O&M phase.
Correct. Like that, it's the driving decisions. Like at the end, you know in advance something is going to happen. Like you take the decision the first day. It's a decision maybe now of 5 seconds, a couple of euros. And if we look on this in 5 years, that decision now it's a nightmare in terms of budget, in terms of managing the incident, because like when these guys are operating the site is running. It's not something that you say, oh, let's change the transformer. Like, yeah, change the transformer, it's losing crazy money.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah, 100%.
Even for us in after-sales services, we use this kind of data to stock materials, especially the ones with long-time delivery. That maybe it's a small material, but can make a big difference, have a tracker stop, and this kind of thing. So with that data, using our MTBF matrix, mean time between failures, we can more or less make a prediction of how much stock I'm going to need for service this plant on the short term and the mid term, and stock materials accordingly. So with this, we can help the customers to save operation time on their trackers by not having to wait for long term for pieces or materials in warranty, for example.
So you're managing the risks of the ineffective monitoring from the start, from the offset. Nipping it in the bud, as we'd say.
Yeah.
Natalia, do you have anything to add?
Well, I was just thinking from day zero, these things are very, very important, and I see it a lot in the contractual phases of starting a project, both in trackers and in modules. For example, what you were saying about the weather stations, it's something that is becoming increasingly important even before you even start the construction, before you have permits in a project, because you have to be able to identify where are your risk zones, where do you have to put the most emphasis in the design, especially on trackers, on stow position, wind positioning, where are the greatest risks, and identifying where do you have to put the most robust solution or the most robust reinforcements in order to prevent, because in solar, prevention is the key. Budgets are very, very low right now, especially because of PPAs, current PPA values. And on the long-term run of 35 years, because each time we extend the financial model of a PV system, well, 30 years, you're basically what you want to do is prevent, because any change generates a butterfly effect in the entire plant.
It's super true what you're saying, because we also noticed that in terms of the RFQs in the SCADAs. I remember 10 years ago or something like that, people were saying, I want a weather station. And it was more like, of course, people with more experience that was detailing more and more. and others that, we need to put pyranometers. No? I remember at some point, like, it was key to have a pyranometer, but it doesn't look like people was knowing what they were doing. And now you see the RFQs that are coming, they are more in the way like, okay, do we have bifacial panels? If so, I need the pyranometer, but also albedo. Do we have trackers? We need a horizontal pyranometer, but we also need pyranometers on the structure, following the sun, and so on. So you see, what you are saying is fully true. Like, we are noticing that on the RFQs. Like, people, it's improving a lot, the specs and how they want it, and how you need to follow exactly what they need, because it's part of a strategy developed after years of experience.
Yeah, I guess this point has become critical for the lenders.
Yeah.
So they need to trust the data that they see, and the only way to trust the data is to have multiple sensors, multiple sources of data, so they can compare with the long-term data that has been used to assess the revenues for the asset before the construction, and then what they actually see. We know that the climate conditions are changing quite a lot in the last 10, 15 years. So that means to be reliable, I need to see what's really happening on site. I cannot just assume that it will be the same that was occurring 20 or 30 years ago.
But also the challenge I think you're facing, like, if I compare with solar 10, 15 years ago, like, for example, in Spain, we were getting a huge amount of money, like, there was this kind of subsidies, or also in UK, I didn't make it easy.
Subventions, yeah.
And now you have a lot of pressure, because now you are competing in the market, the real market. There is no subsidies, you are private PPAs and so on.
Yeah.
So you need to try to win every single euro from the asset in order to make, I would say, effective the investment, or profitable, better said.
And Manu, whilst we're talking about profit, how does a comprehensive O&M approach impact the bankability and the long-term financial, I suppose, performance of solar projects?
Well, so in my opinion, it's not how impact. I think that it's key, is the impact, no? It's how it starts everything. Like, these guys mainly, what they are trying, at the end they receive a project, the project gets built according to a budget, but okay, it's delivered. Here you have, after 6 months you have the baby, here you have the project. Now, you need to make it run 25 years. Like, every time that somebody asks me, no, we want 20 years warranty, and I think, well, normally my phone, I change it every 2 years. So these guys are thinking 25 years of operation. Like, on that, it becomes key how they, for example, in the SCADA, now you are trying to help them on telling about soiling. Like, before it was more a guess. Now the systems are trying to tell them, okay, because soiling you're using this amount, so let's reinvest now to clean the panels and so on, and we will win this more. And again, we are running in efficiencies, and all this turns into KPIs. For example, in solar, we've been working in performance ratio, availability. Now we are looking more for index of performance, because at the end performance ratio, you are comparing, like, okay, I get 80% compared to the radiant sensor. But this 80% doesn't mean that maybe I can be producing up to a PR of 90%. These are the values we're trying to bring.
Yeah, PR is like something so unofficial, so unrealistic, that in the end what you're interested is in the yield, in the daily yield of a project. And in the daily yield of a project, well, if you don't have good starting projects and a good O&M, especially preventive O&M, is that your bankability is going to be destroyed. And this is something that has so much value, because in the end, when you start a project, you go, I think, very optimistic. You know, you trust your supplier, and that's why your supplier has to be very trustworthy and reliable. You start with a design, you have your O&M plan, but if things escalate, the entire bankability of a project is destroyed. It's destroyed because your margins are very tight right now. So if you have a 30-year project and in 5 years, 6 years, you have an important problem, you have lost an enormous amount of revenue.
Long-term profitability is completely gone down the drain.
Exactly. And I think here, data is super important, but also being very I mean, the design here is extremely key. And I think that here, that's why bankability is so related with reliability. And we go under so many tests. I mean, from 10 to 12 years ago to what we do now in quality testing, extended reliability testing, in the strength of each individual component is completely different. I mean, in modules, I think we have 6 months of period of testing the modules just to understand that they will not break down during 30 years. Warranties are for 25 years, 12 years, and they can actually be extended. So we're talking about products that are very, very robust, and the idea is to have as little incidents as possible.
So you're reducing your operational risks by using high-quality products from the offset.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, from the standpoint of the owner of the project or the O&M and asset manager, this is the key to have components that are regularly classified in the sector as tier 1 or tier 2. So bankability increases if you go to tier 1. And then what you're looking for is long-term contracts. What we do is having normally a O&M company that has been in the sector for some time. You try to establish framework agreements so you don't have one company after another, but you look for a 10-year or 15-year contract if possible. And then with the manufacturers, you look for the service level agreements if possible. So you can have a warranty on the service. Why? Because on the side of the revenues, you have right now PPAs, so contracted revenues, which means obligations. And with the obligations, you cannot have a big risk in terms of supply of components or supply of spare parts. So what the sector is moving through is to contracted revenues and then long-term service agreement with the suppliers, including component suppliers and SCADA suppliers.
I can imagine that the O&M history probably also influences the asset valuation heavily.
Track records, presence, how many megawatts. I mean, many lenders now are always, there is like a list of minimum requirements that you have to have just to participate in a project or be even considered. A lot of what Fernando was talking about, you know, what is your presence? What is your experience? What is your track record? What type of projects have you already designed or participated that are very similar? And that is something that if you do not choose correctly, you won't even get the money to do the project.
It's the experience at the end. Well,
Yeah.
So what we are saying is, and that is the data-driven decisions. Like at the end, towards the SCADA, you put it in data, and that data to take decisions. But the reality is like, I will say that it's kind of a young industry compared to others, like 20, 25 years. But in really short term, it becomes really, really professional. And on my side, one of the challenges is how all this experience that sits on Fernando or on you, Natalia, that you know it, how you make it available for a large corporate. You know, at the end, you will know better than me, but you're operating assets in South America, in Spain, in UK, in Australia, I don't know, wherever. All there you all have good people, good suppliers, qualified people that knows a lot. But how many of that data experience, it's living in silos that he knows it, no one else knows, how you make it available across all your teams, like to say, hey guys, you're having this problem, the same is happening there, this is fixed like that, and all that is key.
And that's a challenge. That's a challenge. So from the point of view of the after sales, even when you work between regions, I mean, we have plants in Latin region, in EMEA region, in Europe, and sometimes you can find problems that are common to several regions, okay? But if you are not able to share that information in an effective manner, you may waste time solving them or applying different solutions to something that has been already tested. So yes, you are right. Information and the way you distribute that information among your assets, okay, is very important. Also because the markets are evolving. I mean, European market has nothing to do with how it was like 12 years ago or 15 years ago. It has evolved a lot. And also, LATAM is also evolving a lot. And you can see, for example, like 10 years ago, availability was not very common, and now it's more, the availability clause is more and more common in each contract. It's like, well, okay, what it was good 5 years ago, now is the bare minimum, and it's time you need to put more things to make the assets profitable.
Yeah, I guess the margins are becoming smaller and smaller from the monitoring systems to modules or trackers, and of course for the owner and the investor, margins are tighter, which means everyone needs to try to secure that small margin and at the same time try to make it good enough for the bank to give you the money or the investor to give you the money. So that's why we see more and more obligations in all the different sites.
We are moving from models of produce as much as you can to produce as much efficient as you can. Like this is what the market is telling us, no? Once it goes out the subsidy, like now what we need to do is stress all our knowledge, our equipment and so on to extract every single kilowatt to make it profitable.
And can you think of any real life situations where O&M has made a big difference in terms of return on investment?
In terms of investment, yes, related to what Natalia was saying, that this experienced O&M company is able to go very quickly on site, identify the problem, and hopefully avoid the repetition of that problem again and again. When you have an O&M that has no experience or a very limited experience, they will try to go there and just make a quick fix or an easy fix. Whereas if you have somebody experienced, they will report on what is the root cause, or they will do a root cause analysis. And in some cases, they will be even able to give a guidance to the manufacturers of the trackers or the modules to find out a long-term solution, so you will not have that many losses over time. Yeah. So the difference is problem identification and then resolution, long-term thinking.
Well, for example, in Spain, we have had plant operators with O&M that they were really knowledgeable, and you notice, and they help us a lot to us in the after sales, for example, to to investigate a problem and find the root cause analysis. Okay, and that saves also a lot of time that the tracker is, in my case, tracker is up and running. Okay, because with a good O&M, you can even they can even give you directly the cause. Okay, this tracker is stopped. We believe it's because of this and that. Okay, and then with that info, you can give them a solution much quicker. Okay, usually you can say, okay, well, you replace the motor, or even but for example, one case, one tracker that had a problem with the motor very often. Okay, like much more than others in the plant. And in the end, with the help of the plant O&M, we could show that, well, due to some terrain movement, the tracker was not aligned as it was on the construction phase, and they had to put the piles, one of the piles a bit higher and so on, and that fixed the problem. And we did it with the help of the O&M, that they know the plant, they are there every day, and they know what is happening every day. Yeah.
Providing solutions instead of listing problems. That is key in the O&M.
Yes,
when you have someone that helps on what is going on and they are acting kind of proactive, rather than this is all the list of problems. Okay.
Or if not providing the solution, at least their guess on what is happening. Okay. Of course, from our side, we are the experts in the tracker. I cannot I cannot really ask the customer, give me the solution. No, you give me the solution. You are the expert. But if they give you a good information of what is happening, or a guess of, look, I think it may be this because I saw this some weeks ago, and then they help you to pinpoint the problem. That's a big help for us, and can save a lot of time of the tracker up and running.
But it's key.
And I think the accumulative knowledge of O&M has made it possible for there to even be a return of investment, like currently. If you think about 2006, 2010, you had to have people do, like, from the supplier, you would have to send a knowledgeable person to go and fix. You would even fix solar panels. You would have to fix central inverters. Trackers were 2-axis trackers that had a very specific maintenance requirement, and the expert had to go. And due to that knowledge of all these types of incidents that made the yield go lower availability, I mean, in the end, suppliers have also learned how to minimize that impact, that stop of production. In the module side, you see that now modules are very easy to change. You do not repair them. They come basically ready to withstand 20, 30 years. And in general, if a module doesn't have problems the 2 first years, it's something that is not going to be very problematic. And you have all these testings already done, both in China and on-site, to prevent and to identify and do root cause analysis to identify. Trackers are thought with the idea that you're not going to have to change a great amount of things. I mean, the bearings used to be, you had to put lubrication in the bearings. You had very special type of movements for the 2-axis movement. Now bearings are auto-lubricative, and you do not need to even touch them for them to have the structural integrity of the trackers. So in the end now, O&M is easier with a spare part management that Vicente was mentioning before, and you do not have to depend on so much complexity of O&M requirements that used to be every day in other plants. And I think right now, with what the financial scenario is, in the end, you get a return of the inversion, having like these easier products to have less O&M.
The role of the manufacturer is absolutely key, and that actually leads me on to my next question. I wanted to bring to the table how important it is to choose a reliable manufacturer in terms of optimizing plant O&M, both for trackers, for modules, for inversors.
Well, I think it's key. I mean, choosing a reliable manufacturer is going to make for you easier to have the availability for the replacement, for spare parts. Also, it's going to give you a more reliable product, meaning that you are going to spend less time and less resources on O&M, or that even in the case that something happens, something unexpected, you are going to have a faster response from your supplier because they have the resources to do. Okay? They have an infrastructure and a structure that they can give you the assistance you need when it's needed.
It's key. Like when I was listening to the question, I was thinking more on like, we already face it in the market, like buying certain components that later disappear and now no spare parts, now no operation. But also the dimension that you were mentioning, for me, it's also the service for me as a provider. But I always said that you can have good products, and the industry demands you to have good products, and I believe we have a good product. But also more important than that, it's something that is the service. Because at the end, I could have a really good product, but if you call me and I don't answer or I don't give you the solution, then the product means nothing. Like, of course, needs to be fancy, important, should work. But it's a dimension you were mentioning, the service that also is key. Like when you are selecting some kind of supplier, not only the product, also the service and how it goes with you during the next 20, 25, 30 years.
I guess in the part of the service from the O&M side, what I've seen is that there are manufacturers which are more open, transparent with the service side. They even offer trainings to the O&M companies, so they somehow share their knowledge, their know-how with you, because they know they are reliable, they are big, and they don't mind sharing this knowledge. So it gives you the capability and the ability to resolve issues when they come through. Whereas small manufacturers, they don't have processes. They certainly don't give you training. It's somehow a black box that you have there with them, and most of the time they don't pick up the phone either.
Yes, and imagine that you have wonderful equipment, but something breaks and they don't answer the phone, and it's not standardized, so you can't call anybody else because it's a small manufacturer. So do you think standardization across the industry plays a key role in terms of being able to get a rapid service?
And more efficient.
Yes.
And it's what the market is demanding. On the standardizing, could be across the market or also across your company on decisions that you make, like certain suppliers, certain types of installations, but it also applies worldwide. So we are taking those decisions to improve the efficiency. And well, not me personally, as I am, but it's what I see from my customers, that they are taking macro decisions that it will impact in every single asset to improve it. But on this, you probably know more.
It is also important in the financing side. So you have the same components that have worked already in a certain number of sites. You can go again to your investor or to the bank and get more money to build more projects, and in the end get more revenue. If you don't standardize, they will make more questions, and there will be more obstacles for you to get money or financing from the bankers and the lenders. So it is key for getting more money there.
Later managing more spare parts with multiple suppliers.
Yeah, I mean, technical compatibility is key to be able to...
But there in standardization, I think that there is like a gap, especially if you look at it product-wise from my side. I'm very happy of how Trina has evolved, especially in the module side, because in the end we have stick to 2 sizes of modules. Even if we go upgrading the technology, the sizes maintain a certain stability, and that is super important, especially in O&M when changing modules or rebumping a plant 10 or 15 years from now. I think that there is some importance in standardization. But then you look at trackers, and it's the complete opposite in the sense that the idea is to go back to what we were saying in the beginning, having so much data on the site that you tailor-make the solution in order for it to be so reliable on that specific site. So I think that there are things on decision-making. There are some certain products that do standardize how we do the O&M, what parts are interchangeable. That has to be standardized, but there are some things that need that information. You were also mentioning that the regional information against the global information. So there's things that we obviously do need to standardize, but sometimes we cannot lose the particularities of each project, because in solar, in the end, you have to go so into not only where the project is located, but country context, where it is, what region.
Of course, because the durability, longevity of parts may not be the same in one climate as in another.
Exactly.
They are certainly not. In fact, in trackers and in fixed structure, the structure is mostly tailor-made for that site. Sometimes you can even interchange the pieces or poles or others. They are different. I mean, the pole that is okay for this site is not okay for other site because it's in other conditions. The terrain is different. The terrain, the the ambiental corrosion is different. So yeah, but there are components that certainly can be standard, especially in the control and the motors for the tracker, for example, can be standardized for all of them. The tracker control units and this kind of thing. That is when you want a standard and reliable product.
Yeah, but I would say that somehow, yes, like, because I don't think that it go one against the other. Like standardizing, sometimes it's feel like now you need to do the same all the time, forever and ever. Like standardizing is, for me, it's more like, of course, you need to pay attention of the particularities of each market. You were talking about terrain, like I do not know, I do not make piles, but at the end, somehow I am sure that it becomes to a standard where we say that if we have, I don't know, terrain that it's sand, we use these type of piles, and then if on top of that there is this corrosion, at the end you always go to a standard, but doesn't mean standardizing. For me, doesn't mean something rigid that I need to follow ABC. Standardizing means putting that knowledge in somehow in outputs on how I'm going to act in each one of the scenarios. And I think that we all need to do that, because that also goes together with what we were saying before, like efficiency.
Yeah.
Like it's what we are looking all the time, no?
And whilst we're talking about integrated solutions, Natalia, could you tell me a bit about Trina Pro and Trina Tracker?
Well, I think it's taking advantage of what we're proposing. I mean, since a few years back, Trina has stopped only thinking about being a supplier and has integrated our philosophy of being a solution provider. So always extending on products related to energy transition, we have accumulated so much knowledge in those gray areas, you know, in the areas between modules and trackers, the areas between module trackers and storage now. And that has enabled us to produce smarter solutions for our customers. So for example, the testing of purlins is something key to maintain that union between the structure and the module. And we physically design, physically test, experimentally get these data of using our structures with our modules. I mean, it's not just math calculations or computers. We test them. We have a lab. We put them in certain conditions, and we go that step further. And we also see how they behave together. So we have that study of how we integrate modules, how they behave, how they produce that energy with the use of our trackers. We go a step further with the integration of modules with trackers, and we have developed SuperTrack.
Yeah.
SuperTrack. And with this, I mean, we make our system, not just one product by itself and the other product, more robust, generates more yield, has better productivity. And I think that each time we incorporate a new product inside of Trina, we advance in that direction on how we do the better integration of everything.
Mm-hmm. That's almost all we've got time for today. But before we go, I do have one final question, which is about climate change. So how does climate change and extreme weather events affect the operation and maintenance of solar plants? What threats does it pose?
I think it has impacted on different levels in the O&M. One of them is safety. So typically, you have an emergency plan that was applied for all the assets. Right now, we cannot manage safety in that way. We need to adapt to the local climate and see if there is a place where we have strong winds or strong rains, or we have thunderstorms. So there are electrical phenomena that you have in the area. So that's one. And then in terms of the operation of the asset too, so the way the PV plants are built, and then in the component side, they can talk much more than me, is different. We don't expect to have the same access to the site when we have strong winds in the area, and than when we have a regular flat site. It is conditioning a lot the operation of the asset, and it's fundamental that the design is taking into account that. If not, what we are seeing recently, we saw, for example, in Italy a few months ago, is that there was a big episode of strong winds, and many assets suffered from damages, big damages that were not expected. The reason why is that the designs were limited to what happened in the last 10 years or 20 years, and they were not expecting what we see now with all the climate change across the world.
Also, from the point of view of the pure wearing or stress in the components, climate change makes a big difference. Each time is bigger. I mean, you need more resistant trackers, more resistant material, components. The motors need to be prepared to work on higher temperatures because generally the temperatures on the water are rising. The control units also need to be tropicalized or need to be done to last more. You need to take more care about design of components to make them last on those conditions that are challenging. Each time they are more challenging. Also, we are also installing the plants in places that like 10 or 15 years ago, we wouldn't have installed the plant. So that also makes a twist there on, well, we need to give further in this direction of making the tracker and the components more resistant to the conditions.
So, Natalia, in terms of enhancing resilience in extreme weather, can you tell me about Trinasolar's latest innovations?
Well, we just finished launching a reinforced module, which has, let's say, the last name Shield. And the objective is to have a stronger and more mechanical resistant module. It counts with a 2.5 millimeter glass in both sides. And it is like thought out in not only for changing weather, but for countries that are also expanding in the use of trackers in locations with especially snow. So this module has a higher wind and snow loads capability. It also counts with an A+A fire class, which is super important for rooftop CNI applications, as well as a 55 millimeter hail test resistance, which goes it's very linked to what we were discussing of bankability and this testing that is needed. So especially in North American utility segment, this has become a problem. Hail is becoming more and more an issue and an event in PV plants. And what we're doing here is learning from that and evolving our products. But not only as the module, but as the solution vision that has Trina. So this is also being tested with our structures, how the compatibility of the fixation with the structure enhances that capability of withstanding these changes in the weather conditions.
Yeah. And what about post-event diagnostics after an extreme weather event?
Well, that is something that nobody we don't like when it happens, but something happen, and it's important to have a good team able to do those diagnostics. That certainly, in some cases, is difficult. I mean, because you can have your extractor tested. You need to go there, okay. First, you need to go there and you need to see what happened here. Okay, you need to send a team and do your investigation, the conditions that were on site when the extreme event happened. Sometimes it may happen that it happened over the design conditions. Then there's nothing you can do. I mean, if the design conditions are exceeded, it will happen. But sometimes it may happen in a, let's say, in a frame among the design conditions. Then when it's important to make the investigation and see, okay, what happened here? Was the tracker or the structure correctly maintained or assembled, or it was something else that we have missed? Why this has happened? And it's when a good team and a good structure for investigate the events is important.
And what kind of extreme weather events are we talking about here? The ones which really impact solar power performance?
You were saying one, like the one in Italy.
We see a lot of strong winds,
Yes.
causing problems with the modules and the trackers. Some flooding too. So before, for example, you were looking at the rains, typically last 50 years. Now more and more you go to 100 or even 150 years if there are registers, which is more or less the limit of from when we have data. And the reason why is that, we have suffered from that in Spain last year in Valencia.
Yes.
Very big rain that was not there for I don't know how many years. We see this in solar plants, and then it is difficult for the O&M to intervene and make a fix of something if everything is covered by water. And there is also one more typical event that we see more and more, even if locally, is the hailstorms.
Yes.
And that's very related to what Natalia was saying before. In the testing 10 years ago, that was not hardly considered. And right now, you see that the modules are able to cope with the hailstorm unless there is a massive event. It happens, and the modules resist. The structures are still there. So it means that the manufacturers are looking more and more into different phenomena.
So the O&M protocols need to be adapted to the local climate conditions.
Yes, definitely. I mean, here in Europe, we don't see, for example, earthquakes. But if you're in Japan, you will see that too. And certainly the structures and the modules will have to take in account this thing happening frequently, or at least in 20 years a few times. So the PV plant will stay there, and the investment will be kept.
And they can mitigate the risk through a resilient design, taking into account the climate events.
Yeah, it all comes to the design, to the testing that is done. And from the side of the asset manager or the O&M, it becomes important to see that all this testing has been done. So it is reliable, what you see there, all the components, and you can trust that when something happens, even if the local climate is hard, you are still able to manage what happens.
And in what ways do you think the impact of climate change has actually affected solar plant structures?
Yes, for sure. I mean, as we said, climate change is making the winds go higher in some zones, the heat and other conditions, and even the terrain corrosion, and yeah, definitely you need to adapt your structure to this new paradigm. Let's say so. Now the structures are more resistant than they were 10 years ago. Okay, you make better and more strict wind test, for example, and you finally what you do is you test your material, the components in more stressing conditions before sending them to site, because if not, you may have problems later during the operation phase.
Prevention is key.
Yes, prevention is key.
I think that's all we have time for today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much to Natalia, to Vicente, to Manuel, to Fernando.
Thank you, Beth.
Beth.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for sharing your expertise and shedding a ray of sunlight on this interesting topic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye for now. Every day, more and more people are asking, are we finally seeing a shift from reactive to predictive maintenance? So we opened the mic to industry professionals, clients, and curious minds to ask their top questions to our guests. Let's hear what's on their minds. We have our first question from Javier.
Hi, everyone. I'm Javier Iglesias, Head of Tracker Sales in Europe. As the European solar market matures, our players are navigating increasingly complex technical and regulatory environments. My question is, what are European clients asking for in terms of O&M evolution beyond the basic to keep access competitive and compliant?
A great question from Javier. Who'd like to take it?
I can start. So I guess there are two points, in my opinion, that have become important. One is from the technical side. So we now expect that the O&M team is able to respond to the request from the grid operator. We have seen, in particular in Spain, that the volume of renewables is now big. It's important. That means that we see in the network technical constraints, what is called normally curtailment. Mm-hmm. So the grid operator is requesting to all the assets to adapt and reduce the output energy that they produce. And sometimes it works because it has been configured for that. Sometimes we need the O&M to manage actively the request from the network operator. From the financial side, it has become also a challenge for the O&M, because right now we don't see the trading of the energy just in the regular market. We have secondary markets. We have seen also negative prices in the energy recently. It has been in all over the news, and that means that we need the O&M sometimes to go there and avoid the production of energy with negative prices, or interact with the SCADA supplier to make sure that we don't lose money for the owners of the assets. I'm sure Manu can add something on that.
I remember, I think the first time I saw negative prices significantly, it was during the pandemic, especially in the UK. And that was the perfect example of O&M, because we talk about O&M, we're talking about assets that maybe have more than 10 or 15-year-old, that at that moment, no controls were implemented. Now it's a must. But at that moment, there was no control. And suddenly the clients were facing like, okay, we need to stop the site to negative price, or because even if I stop, it will be better according to the grid, and it's what they are requesting me. And as a challenge for the O&M, it was how I bring a site that it have 10, 15 years old to the new era with a 10 or 15-year-old technology to what my customer is requesting now. And it was kind of a challenge, and like having a good partner there, good contractors and so on, it was like the demonstration of we succeed doing that with really old elements that sounds like dummy, easy, but it was not. We are talking about inverters that didn't even have the option to have that control, and we were able to collaborate with you, with everybody, to, okay, let's update them, let's just start controlling them and be able to succeed. And it was one of the examples I can recall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, from the purely, let's say, maintenance and spare part point of view, what the customers ask is we need our spare parts quickly here when needed. Okay, now it's not acceptable to have a long waiting time in order to have a spare parts, a motor, a control unit, or even a structure that can have your tracker stop for a very long time. Okay? Customers are energy producers, so what they want are their assets producing energy. Mm-hmm. So the response time and delivery time for spare parts are very important.
Mm-hmm. Vale, voy. I also think that having stability as a brand has been important. I mean, Trina has been a brand that has been in tier 1 position for over 25 years. And even if you do not have a replacement or a spare part, we are always open to find a way to help our customer update if they need it with something we have to offer, or we find a solution, or we recommend a solution. I mean, I think here it's important to see that as a supplier, we are still here in a very difficult market, which is the solar market, and we're always like there. We have been there, we have responded, and you get that safety net when you need a change and you need to update because there is no technology that is available that has been available for 10 years ago.
And also in line with that, sometimes the customer need your expertise. Okay, needs when an issue gets, let's say, complicated or something out of the normal happens, they need your assistance, your expertise as a manufacturer to help them finding the problem, okay, and help them having their assets up and running and producing energy for them. And that's also a very important thing that they are requesting.
Thank you very much. Moving on now to our next question, which comes from Felipe.
Hello, I'm Felipe Tokamoto. I'm product manager for Trinatracker in Latin America. With multi-scale projects coming up, OEM function has become strategic across Latin America. In our region, we have established a level of autonomy on OEM process while maintaining a good collaboration with our headquarters to share best practices and technical insights. So here's my question. As utility-scale solar continues to grow in key regions like Latin America, how is the OEM model evolving to balance technical excellence with the local workforce development and effective knowledge sharing?
In this sense, knowledge transfer is very important. I mean, what the O&M needs is to transfer this knowledge to the local teams that can help you repairing and assessing and do an effective maintenance to the assets on site. Okay? So that's why the reason that the knowledge transfer is very important. You cannot keep the knowledge only in, let's say, headquarters or so on. You need to make the local teams capable of fixing problems on site and do effective maintenance. For that, training on site is very important. Making work guides or even other knowledge transfer ways is important for this.
Yeah. So from the SCADA perspective, saying like what I see is more and more is that customers try to consolidate their data and their portfolio. Like I'm seeing that every time more and more they avoid like having this kind of segregated data. I see that they are working a lot towards digitalization of their solutions, trying to concentrate all the knowledge in one data lake with all the technologies, all the ticketings, reports, and so on, in order somehow to be able to do macro analysis towards their portfolios, but also check what different colleagues are doing, no? Like checking, okay, I remember a discussion between a customer that it was saying, like, I do not understand why this model, it's working here in South America, but it's not working for us in there, where we have similarities climatology, and they were able to see what it's doing each other and sharing that in order to improve altogether. And all this is what I am seeing in the O&Ms. And we said that, I think, at the beginning, that the O&M, every time it's playing a more important role in an early stage of the project, not rather arriving at the end, and trying to putting these conditions, let's say, at the time of operation, like, okay, I need, these are my minimums of data, of how I want the things to be structured, the spare parts, and so on, in order to somehow make a standard that helps the entire portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add something on that, what I believe has become very, very useful is that there are sessions in many companies about lessons learned, and there is an interaction between the construction team and the operation. So related to what Manuel was saying, the O&M is in an early stage involved within the construction, but not just involved. They bring with them the knowledge that they have from previous experience. So in terms of the emerging markets, we have the knowledge in Europe because we have been with these projects and with this sector for longer. So they call these lessons learned, and we can implement that into the local teams and local talent in this emerging market. So they will have a much faster learning curve in their O&M rather than, again, starting from the beginning as we did 15 or 20 years ago.
From our side, I think we have also evolved in our concept of what is local. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, there was like a focalized office, and then you would have teams that went to each specific region and then came back. And these did have some advantages, but in the end, each local region, each local market has a diverse conditions and necessities that the only way to advance is to have a local team. So I think that something that is very good about Trina is that it gives a lot of value of having local teams in countries, in markets. So each market has, let's say, technical people, and the value of having that technical people there is the face-to-face, because face-to-face trainings, face-to-face interventions, face-to-face, we're there. We're the first ones in the line when you have a problem. We have the capability of going in 24 hours, 12 hours, because sometimes you have to react. And how do you react? Well, having a team there. And I think that's something that is very important.
Yeah. At the end, people like people.
Yeah.
It's as basic as that, no?
Yeah.
And also the language and so on, it facilitates a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Felipe, I hope that answers your question. And we're going to finish with a question from EMEA about extreme climate conditions.
Hi everyone, this is Fahad Javed, Marketing Manager for Trinasolar Middle East and Africa. When we talk about Middle East and Africa, we face extreme conditions here, such as heat, dust, soiling, which are daily challenges for solar plants, and customers are demanding smarter solutions. So my question is, in regions like Middle East and Africa, where extreme conditions are the norm, how are customers driving demand for more adaptive, preventive operations and maintenance services such as robotic cleaning, remote diagnostics, or AI-based scheduling? Thanks, Beth, for letting me ask the expert panel a question.
Well, at least from the schedule, I would say that it becomes a must. Like before in the RFQs, you were saying like reporting, KPIs, whatever. Now, I would say all what, in our case, we call advanced analytics, and artificial intelligence, all this speech. Like, it's true, like every time more and more, what the customer is not telling, like, what are you doing with my data? It's more, what can you offer me on top of that? How you can help me? For example, we deployed algorithms that are able to estimate the losses through soiling, and because that, the client is able to anticipate if I clean the panels or not. Or also you are trying to say an efficiency is due to temperature or inverters not following the MPTT. And all these that as an easy look, you will see, okay, maybe the site is underperforming, but what I want you to tell me or help me to diagnose where it's underperforming in order to improve all that. And as I said, 7 years ago, the requirement was to be able to calculate KPIs. Now that it's like, of course you are able to do that. On top of that, what are you offering going this extra mile, helping me to improve the performance of the asset?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think in terms of this data for the O&M, it is now relevant to identify not only that there are losses, but what kind of losses do we have. These ones that you were mentioning, Beth, in the question are some of them. And in some regions where you have extreme conditions, they are more important. In terms of the dust, for example, if you are in a desertic location, it is fundamental to have a control of the soiling due to dust. And it's done right now. We have Dust IQ sensors that were not installed 5 years ago, and now they are. And in terms of the robotic cleaning, well, Trina has developed a robot. Well, 3 types of robots, if I'm right, and then these 3 prototypes are now being tested. From ISBU, we have a few assets where we own them, and we would like to try these robots to see what is the difference if we see a substantial difference in the performance between an asset where we don't have these robots and an asset where we have them. So you can look at the long term. You make an investment in the first instance, and then maybe the robot will clean every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, and you don't need a team of 10 people cleaning it a couple of times per year.
Mm-hmm.
I think these type of customers really ask for compatibility as well as flexibility, because it's impossible to have everything studied. It's impossible to understand each and every requirement, especially in EMEA, where wind can be something impressive that you do not have, let's say, something as a standardized solution. So finding how to be compatible from our stance between our own products as well as other products such as cleaning machines, and finding sometimes what is the solution of that compatibility is what we have to present. And I also think that the knowledge that we have, because for example, when things are so specific and extreme, you have to put a lot of detail in what data you have, like having weather stations there to have a precise measurement of what not only is the wind load, the direction of the wind load, how are you going to position design. So it's being flexible with those standard designs, also being compatible with the different needs and the knowledge, the experience.
Yeah, like I like what you said. Like, I will say you were saying compatibility. I will say that the reality that we are facing is that our customer needs are changing super fast. So they ask us to adapt at the same speed that the market is changing for them. And this is what we are all trying. So it's not that how we see that it's increasing, like it's the speed on how this is happening compared like to maybe 10 years ago. Yeah. Every day it's faster and faster, and we need to adapt or find compatibility faster, because it's impossible to match that 1 + 1, 2, and we are going to, no, but how we are going to make it to deliver what really you need.
And also, in line with what they commented about the speed, the response time. I mean, when you have a customer with a plant in extreme conditions, if anything happens, they need you to give them a solution, an answer, as quickly as possible. Okay, so being able to make a remote diagnosis using Trina Cloud, for example. Okay, being able to check the status of a tracker of a control unit remotely, and giving a first answer to the local team, the local O&M team, to see if they are able to put the tracker back on track. That's very good, and is what the customers demand also. Being able to solve the problem where they appear, okay, due to extreme conditions, as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing your expertise, and thank you for contacting us with your questions. Time to wind down now, but before we go, let's reflect on what we've heard. If solar is to power the future, it needs to last, and that means thinking long-term right from the start. With the right strategies, tools and people, O&M isn't just about fixing problems, it's about preventing them, improving performance and maximising value. So here's to the teams in the field, the brains behind the dashboards, and the technologies that help solar stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us in the sun today.